So, Bernard, yesterday something happened that
Talk to me.
I want to tell you about. See,
What happened to you?
I went to buy kinky, you know.
You went to buy kinky?
Gan call me precisely. You know, and they said it was 4 CD to...
Kinky is 4 CDs now?
Yeah, I was shocked. You know, it's been 4 CD. It moved to 3 to 4.
Hey!
Now, they told me there was 4 and 5.
Are you serious?
And I knew I knew to be satisfied I had to go for the 5.
So you're saying that I can't get a bottle of kinky for 2 CDs?
No, 2 CD, I'm not sure.
Are you serious?
I doubt. Kinky
You can't
2 CD
kinky
right
for
now.
2 CDs?
Oh, I don't think so.
You know that the last...
Maybe unless James Town inside
the last time I personally, with my own money,
Yes.
went to stand by a kinky shop to buy kinky.
How long ago was this?
Probably around 2013 or something.
2013.
I don't remember. So usually people will buy for me. I don't remember the last time I went to stand and say, Mahi, call me. I was living at School Junction that time. I think it was 2012 or 2013 or something. And at that time, kinky was like, they had moved from 50 pesos to 1 CD.
50 pesos.
Yeah. The last time I actually physically with my own money and my own hand and my own mouth.
5 Ghana.
Really?
5 Ghana. And the fish, you know, the tail, no? The tail.
It's okay. I don't get kinky for 2 CDs.
No. The tail of the fish.
Will I get kinky for 3 CDs?
Yes. 3 CDs, that would be regular. Baby kinky.
Are you serious?
Yeah, if you want medium
So how much
size,
is kinky now?
No, it's 4 CD, 5 CD. That is if you're a heavy eater.
Are you sure?
But if you want to do something small, you get 3 CDs and that should be fine.
Hey.
And you know, what's beating my mind is that we are seeing that inflation has dropped over the period, right? So we've entered this year and we have been told that look, inflation has gone down. We are down to 23.2% at the end of 2023. But it doesn't look like the prices of goods are matching the figures we are hearing in the news.
You are falling into a trap.
You know, so when you go to the market, you are buying something.
You are falling into a trap.
The body there's inflation about from the way they will look at you.
You know, the thing is that this inflation thing is always confusing because the consumer price index is the changes in price of a fixed basket of goods. Consumer price index is not it does not measure whether prices are going up or down necessarily. Right. The rate of inflation is looking at the relative change in CPI or the consumer price index, right? So what you're saying is that price levels are going up.
Yes.
All right. The consumer price index, which then is used to calculate inflation, is looking at year-on-year inflation. And then month-on-month inflation. Now, if what's the inflation rate today? They said
23.2%.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean okay. So, do you know what that actually means?
Better explain, because
you know, because of the way we use inflation to do politics, people don't really understand it. So, there's something called the rate at which prices are increasing.
Okay.
All right. So remember last year, 2022.
Yeah.
Around September, the city fell a lot. October, November.
Yeah.
Things went very, very bad. Remember?
Yeah.
So prices were going up a lot. Good. And then when I came back on air, October 2022, that was when they started the haircuts.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah. So from that period, prices have been going up for a long time.
Yeah.
So now if you calculate inflation for November, and you say November 2023, and say, inflation is coming down, or you calculate inflation for December, inflation is coming down, what you're basically saying is that the rate at which prices were increasing in November 2023 compared to the rate at which prices are increasing in November 2022. Now, between August and December 2022, there was an unprecedented drop in the currency's value.
Serious.
And there was a very, very rapid increase in price levels.
Yeah.
So if you measure inflation for October last year, November last year, December, which is the 20 figure you are talking about, and they say inflation is 30% or 20%, it's just saying that the rate at which prices are increasing today,
it's not the same as
compared to what it was last year, is 20. Do you get me? And the year that's 2022 was an abnormal year for price increases. So food prices are still going up.
Yeah.
Prices are actually much, much higher. So for example, BNFT does an analysis today and is telling you that if somebody were given 100 CDs in 2021, the value of that 100 CDs, or if something was selling for 100 CDs in 2021, the same thing will be selling for
154 in December 2022.
And then by 2023, to go to almost 189. All right. So it means that price levels have increased by 90% in those 3 years. All right. So that's a more useful way of measuring it. So if I'm earning 1,000 CDs in 2021, I probably need about 1,900
900
to do the same thing
The
1,000
same
was
thing
doing.
in
So you need like
2024.
a doubling of your salary.
Wow.
So the analysis they're doing is that even though inflation is coming down, that's why when they say we've turned the corner, I just laugh. Because you see, you can, and indeed, Ofusudoti said this, you can have on paper, inflation has reduced from 50% to 40% to 30%.
Yeah.
But the meaning of that for my income is that the rate at which prices were increasing, that's why you need the three rates. You need the inflation rate, you need the interest rate, and you need the exchange rate.
Right.
All right. And then you also need to look at the general price levels.
Right.
All right. So there's a difference between the rates at which prices are increasing. Now you are telling me that KK is now 4 cedis.
Yeah, 5.
If I was earning 10 cedis a day
Yeah.
in 2020,
Yeah.
and KK was 2 cedis in 2020,
And you still have the same.
and I'm earning 10
salary now.
cedis today, and KK is now 4 cedis, I'm using 40% of my
40% of your
income
earning.
to buy one ball.
Breakfast.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
So let's nobody use inflation to confuse you. Inflation is a good figure. The 20% is still very bad.
Wow.
Because the real inflation that we want is around 8 plus or minus 1 or 2. So we have not turned the corner.
Yeah.
All right. People's incomes are low. If you read the BNFT analysis very carefully,
Yeah.
in fact, the inflation figures itself, food inflation is serious.
Still very high.
Food inflation in
very
Koforidua is
high.
over 50%.
But now let me read this portion.
Read the story
It says,
for me.
The Kenke Index report published in September 2023 reveals a concerning trend. The weight of Kenke Chesemudrono at a given price has shrunk by 32% year on year, while the price at a given weight has increased by 51.8%, aligning with the Ghana Statistical Service's national food inflation of 51.9% assessment at the close of 2023. So the weight has shrunk, but the price has increased.
Can you repeat this?
Yeah. The Kenke Index report published in September 2023 reviews a concerning trend. The weight of Kenke at a given price
The weight of a cake at a given price.
has shrunk by 32% year on year, while the price at a given weight has increased by 51.8%, aligning with the Ghana Statistical Service's national food inflation of 51.9% assessment at the close of 2023. So we are seeing a representation of a double whammy for consumers paying more for a significantly smaller product.
So think about this. You earn 1,000 cedis a month
Yeah.
from COVID time.
Yeah.
You spend about 40% of that on food. Food prices have gone up based on the inflation figures and everything else by probably 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
All right. So you're spending more of that 1,000 on food.
Yeah.
Your rent is due and your rent has gone up
Yeah.
because the demand for housing is high. Your landlady thinks that after every 2 years you must increase your rent because people are asking.
Yeah.
So you're going to look for more money to pay your rent. Now GPRTU has announced they are going to do a 60% increase in transport fare. So let's assume you live at Oyarifa and you work at Accra. If you're paying 4 cedis in and out, you're going to pay like probably 6 or 8 cedis. Okay. So food prices have gone up, your transport fares have gone up because fuel prices have also gone up.
And rent is going up.
Rent has gone up. Now, we haven't spoken about whether they're buying clothes or not. No. We haven't spoken about whether they're buying Momo. In fact, MTN also raised their tariffs.
Yes.
So your data
calls,
and your calls have gone up.
everything.
Now, you put all of this together, then somebody sitting somewhere thinks it's a good idea to now impose a 15% VAT on electricity. I don't understand. So, and you see, this is the thing. Electricity is an inelastic good. It means, you see, you can choose not to buy an iPhone.
Yeah.
An iPhone has elastic demand. But a yam has inelastic demand because a yam is a basic feature phone.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you put a tax on an inelastic good, you are killing people. Yeah. If you put a tax on, yesterday somebody brought me a hamper and it had something called Glenfiddich.
What's this?
I don't drink. So some people from my office came to take the Glenfiddich.
Thank you.
Now, if you put a tax on Glenfiddich, I don't drink Glenfiddich.
Yeah.
You don't even know what it is.
I don't.
So maybe 0.01% of our income goes into Glenfiddich.
Yeah.
But if you put a tax on salt,
That's a problem.
good. So if you decide to put a 15% tax
On electricity.
it is, I think, is the worst decision a government can take. And I'll explain why. Electricity is a necessity.
True.
Electricity is for two things. For those of us consumers, it's a finished good. For producers, like factories, it's a raw material. All right. So if I buy electricity as a product to use, I'm not adding any value to it. So even though you've changed a lot to add VAT to electricity, economically it doesn't make logic.
Because it's a finished good to me as a consumer.
That's my first point. Number two, electricity is a necessity. When you place a tax on necessity, poor people bear the incidence of the tax. Because the proportion of my income I spend on a necessity as a poor person is higher than the proportion of income a rich person spends on their electricity. All right. And that 30 kilowatt hour thing is too low to make any sense. So it's a regressive tax. So people have already suffered from the increase in VAT. We are paying COVID tax. We are paying all kinds of levies.
Already the tariffs, they were increased recently.
Good. You've increased tariffs every quarter since last year. The year before last, every quarter. The only quarter they increased was the third quarter, which was like a 1% reduction. I'm spending a large proportion of my income on electricity. And the tariff has gone up. And now you are placing a 15% tax on this, all right? Because you want to macro stability and you want to raise revenue. You are killing poor people. You are giving poor people incentive to go and say they are going to do legal connection. Because now we have prepaid. Okay, so you have to purchase the electricity. So that's point number 2 I've made, right? So it's it's absurd to impose a tax. Even in advanced countries, this is the other thing. In the UK, they have VAT of 20% on goods and services. Their VAT on electricity is 5%. Do you get it? So this is my third argument. Even if you are going to impose a VAT on electricity, you shouldn't apply the same VAT that you apply on a mobile phone on electricity. Because a mobile phone is not the same price as electricity. So in every country that they've applied VAT on power, the rate is much, much lower. Okay, for example, UK, VAT charged on goods is 20%, VAT on electricity is 5%, and that 5% is even being debated. In Netherlands, they've reduced the VAT on energy from 21 to 9%. These are advanced society.
From 21 to 9%.
And you in Ghana have changed your VAT rate. When you calculate your VAT rate, about 15% plus. It's actually about 19%. So if you now take 15% tax and you apply it on top of electricity tariff, it is
unconscionable. It
doesn't make sense. Okay. Now let's go to electricity for production. So for those who are using electricity at home, this 15% is regressive. Now, electricity is the raw material for everything produced in Ghana. When we checked inflation for made in Ghana products, it was 23%, higher than imported products. What you are doing by imposing a 15% tax on electricity is that you are telling water companies, cement companies, drink companies in Ghana that they should go and suffer because imported goods will be much, much cheaper. Because if my factory, like Tema Steel factory, fabric metal, is electricity heavy, and you are telling me that I should pay 15% more on the cost of what I'm producing, I'm going to pass it on to the consumer. So if I produce steel, and you're going to use the steel to do
iron rods,
I'm going to raise the iron rods price by more than 15% because my power is going up. Do you understand? So you are doing two things. You are going to push inflation up again, and you're going to make the cost of products higher. So even though you are going to allegedly receive revenue from this 15%, you are killing local. So take tropical cable, take fabric metal, take gasem, take standard water, take diamond cement. You're making all these companies uncompetitive because they are Chinese competitors from abroad who have cheaper products. They will either shut down their factory or have to raise price. It doesn't make sense to me on any economic level.
Or even sack some of their employees.
Yeah, did. So on the consumer side, it doesn't make sense. On the regressive versus progressive side, it is regressive. And then on the pass-through side for industry, it doesn't make sense. Yet, Parliament, there's a law that has increased the VAT. You understand what I'm saying? In addition to all this inflation thing, and then you say you've turned the corner, there's absolutely something wrong with this. Do you get me? So for me, I think the government has missed the trick. They have completely lost the plot on this economy. And this idea of taxing electricity is not on at a time where, let me tell you something. Yesterday, I called my friend Ferdinand Abodakwi to bring me a Doomsor fan. You see,
Doomsor fan.
As I'm talking to you today, people don't have power. So I interview. What's the name of the guy? Japan Mesa. I said,
Deputy Energy Minister.
Where's the graphic? It says we've paid. I interviewed him and he says we've paid 10 million to APCO. So the power is over. This money people don't have power.
That's true.
If you like, ask your listeners whether people have power. So this thing we are doing, if you want, you are imposing a tax on a product that is even not reliable.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I think that it is the worst tax decision that has been taken by a government, and the parliament, if they've not approved already, to reject it. Industry should reject it. Consumers should reject it. The government should not impose this 15% tax on electricity at all.
It's completely regressive.
They should shelve it and put it. They should bin it. It's a terrible decision. Yeah. It's going to, and then I'm going to say something. By end of year, the revenue will be affected. ECG will lose money. Yeah. People will do illegal connection. Yeah. The government revenue that they will get will not be compensated because all the tax. Don't forget they raise some taxes for companies after tax profit and things. Yeah. A lot of companies will shut down because people will not locate their factories here. If I'm a cocoa manufacturing company and you are telling me I'm going to pay 15% more,
I'm moving to another.
I'm
country.
Going somewhere else. Yeah. So I think the government should not allow the finance ministry and the GRA to mislead it. This is a terrible decision.
It is.
It is a completely, from an economic angle, it doesn't make sense. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't go into the legality. But I even feel it's absurd to impose a VAT on power. Some people do it. But it's going to lead to business losses, job cuts, and eventually when you analyze the tax, they'll lose more money than they'll gain. Yeah. So I think the government should not. They should not do it.
Even reflecting on the impact of this on SMEs, people who are producing, young people who are out of school, who have started their own businesses, doing leather works, doing cosmetics, doing food processing and all of these things. And they tell you that they've been reeling under the impact of unreliable power supply. So that is impacting their bottom line. Now you're going to increase, the thing already is not reliable. I feel you are going to increase the cost of it. You just throw people out of business.
And you see,
many SMEs will shut.
When you look at what ECG has been trying to do, ECG, for example, announced that if you have not if you've not had a meter, they'll give you a flat rate to charge. They can put the right to regularize. So if you look at the work ECG has done in the past 6 months, they have raised their revenue.
They've done well.
I think ECG revenue will come down with this VAT. I'm telling you, I can challenge anybody on this. I don't think ECG should support this. I don't, because see, the thing about Ghanaians is that if the price is low, they'll find a way of paying for it. The ECG move of going to house, asking people to come and get meters. If you don't have a meter, pay a flat rate. All these things is helping them to raise their revenue. Okay. Yes, we know that this 20 million that they owe, this GMPC thing, you can say that ECG will tell that they've paid GMPC. GMPC is also to pay Ghana Gas. So that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
All right. According to ECG, they've paid because they have raised their revenue. This VAT that they are imposing on electricity, it would reverse all ECG has achieved in the past 6 months. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if you press ECG, they will not agree to this. Do you understand?
I get it.
And I'm speaking from a tariff economics point of view, and the psychology or the behavior of consumers.
Human consumers.
Do you get it? I think that the Ministry of Finance decision to impose a VAT on powered electricity, it is a terrible idea. But terrible idea.
Let's think of alternatives, because during the conversation when the trades minister mentioned that a cabal of cement producers, for example, had increased the cost of cement, and that the government had created a conducive atmosphere for businesses to thrive. So they don't see why the cement producers are increasing the cost of cement, for example. I went out there to talk to some foremen and masons who buy cement and put up projects and all. And there was this young man who mentioned that most of them, the price of cement from 3 years ago is not the same as now, right? And even they who are building projects for people cannot afford to start their own projects because of the cost. And their clients are now delaying the completion of their projects because the cost of the materials has shot up. They do not have money. It's taking a while longer. Then he made a very point that look around and look at the massive buildings people are putting up here. Why are we not making money through property rates to make up for all the money?
You are so right. Two things here. So whilst the cement manufacturing company in Ghana will pay 15% more for his power and therefore be uncompetitive, somebody from a different country will have a tax exemption to bring the cement in at a cheaper price. That's point number one. So what the government is doing with this tax exemptions plus this obnoxious tax on power,
electricity,
which is the raw material for industrialization, is basically saying that they are kissing goodbye to 1D, 1F. They are kissing goodbye to industrial growth and development. I wonder how KT Amon thinks about this, because he's the minister who is trying to revamp industrialization. All your manufacturing firms are in trouble. I was at a program last month, or is it this November, where all the companies were there, and they were already talking about being persecuted by the VRA, by the GRA, with unjustifiable tax audits, which they slap on you. You are adding 15%. You're basically saying to them, I wonder what GIPC thinks about this, right? Number 2 point on this. I remember interviewing Yausa Fomafu in this studio, 2019-ish. And I said, sir, property rate is proven to be the best way of mobilizing revenue in a progressive way, right? I got a house in 2013, I started paying for a house. It's only in 2023 that I finished paying for the house. So it's taking me like 10 years to pay for my house. All right. And you can say I'm an above average citizen. All right. So I'm not poor. Okay.
True.
Now, if you said to me that I should pay a rate on that house, I will complain, but I will pay if you find a way of collecting it.
Yeah.
Godfred Odum rents a house, but he buys if ECG prepaid.
Yeah.
So if you want to be fair, if Bernard pays on the house he owns, property rate,
makes sense.
It makes sense. But you can't tell Godfred
to pay
who's renting.
Utility.
Do you get me? So the government has sat down for 6 years,
This is not right.
and property rate is still lip service. Now we are told the district assemblies are working on some private company. Do you know the worst thing I'll tell you?
Tell me, Bernard.
If you look at the numbers from 2020 to 2023, when the company, they had this new arrangement for property rate. Now the rate that they've collected together is even lower. So for some reason, the arrangement hasn't yielded more property rates. And I stand to be corrected on this. But I'm told that the property rate they've collected since that project started has not matched the previous one. Do you get me?
So then what was it?
I don't know. If you want to look, there are houses in this country, East Legon, motorway
$1 million
extension,
houses.
even Nanakrum, because they've done the road.
Yeah.
People have raised their prices.
Yeah.
If you say you are going to enforce property rate and collect it well, you raise enough revenue. People feel that the government is cynically, because, of course, they own a lot of the property anyway. They don't want to do it. And then you go and raise 15% on power.
Yeah.
When already the automatic adjustment formula is causing problems. The cash waterfall is suffering because, in fact, if you look at one of the reasons why the energy sector is struggling is because the tariff rates are low.
Low, that's true.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
And that low tariff rate has fed into a lot of things. These collections are also bad. Now you're going to worsen this collection by raising a 15% VAT on a tariff that's already difficult to collect. I don't. And you, property rate, you've been discussing it for the past 6 years, and you implemented a policy that's not even raised the level of revenue you've received.
Enough.
And then you give tax exemptions to the billions. Then you come and tell us that you've turned the corner, and therefore we should clap for you. What are you trying to tell me? Do you understand? I need somebody from government to explain to me the logic of government's fiscal focus and how that affects their own ideas about industrialization. And unless there's a new economics that we didn't learn. Do you understand? Unless there's a new economics we didn't learn, I think that the president should reverse this decision immediately. He should.
I doubt he will.
This decision will destroy the energy sector. It will destroy industry. It will destroy ECG's revenue collection. It will destroy, if there's any goodwill left. I don't even think they have any goodwill left. I don't know whatever goodwill. If I don't know whatever they left, whatever they have, it is a completely counterproductive, poorly thought through, and it makes no sense. And I'm prepared to listen to whoever has superior arguments. I'm not shouting. I'm not insulting. I'm saying I've given you 3 reasons.
Yeah.
I've said, let me repeat them to conclude my point. I've said number 1, power for consumers is an end product. I don't understand how you're putting VAT on it. Number 2, is regressive in nature. And number 3, for VAT on industrial consumption or commercial use of power is going to affect company cost of operations to a point where it will lead to less profit, company shutdowns, and ultimately lower revenue. This is my analysis back of the envelope. I am ready for anybody from government to challenge me and tell me these are the numbers, the models they do it, whether it's from the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, or GRA. You can tell me, send me an article, let me know, but I'm saying to you that you are wrong on this, and that it would, by November this year, it will be like e-levy. You will bite you will regret it. E-levy, we told you e-levy was bad, you didn't listen to us. Your e-levy has been so counterproductive. You said you will not go to IMF because of e-levy. Then we went to IMF. Then the e-levy, you projected 6 billion. You've got less than 20% of that. And then people opted out. So you destroyed goodwill in the telco industry with this very bad e-levy. And you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing. Why isn't there debate in government? Where are the voices? Where are the economists? Where are the schools of thought? All right. Where are the look? I remember I interviewed your Graham. He was talking to me about PNDC when they wanted to go back to the Bretton Woods. There was a massive. They said the debate was so bitter that people resigned. He left the PNDC because of that. People resign because, like Kwesi will say something, Ahoy will say something. People are bringing arguments.
These are people of the same
Where
party.
are the arguments in the government about this? Where are the people? Minister of Trade, what are you saying? Board chairman of ECG, what are you saying? Where are the numbers? Do you get me? That's what you need in the government. People should come and say, look, Stephen Adair has told you this is terrible. Just that. He's a former board chair of GRA. What calculations did they do? We need people to stand up, even within that party, to explain that this is wrong. The last hope of Ghanaians, the small money we are getting to manage our Christmas to move. Now we should pay 15% on electricity.
Bernard, we have a tax consultant joining us on the phone. Very, very important. Bernard Avle here. But joining us on the phone lines now is Francis Timoboy. He's a tax consultant and we want to pick his inputs as well. Thank you for joining us, Francis. So we're seeing that government wants to implement a 15% VAT on electricity. And this morning, our argument is that it is regressive. It is going to, chip off government's gains. Let's hear your argument also from where you stand as a tax consultant. Will this inure to the plans of the government? It's seeking to, whip up revenue. Will this help government or it will end up as e-levy as we are arguing?
So thanks, Caleb, and good morning to the team. First of all, the implementation as we are seeing now has been in the law since 1998 when the VAT law was passed. The supply of electricity to households, and I want to call them residential premises, was exempted up to a level we normally call the lifeline. Any consumption which is above the lifeline was supposed to attract VAT. And the lifeline were people who consume 0 to 30 kilowatts. And so if your consumption is above that, then you are supposed to pay VAT on that. The same law was transposed into the 2013 VAT law as we see it. The challenge that we had over the years has been that the ECG and then the power distributing companies were not implementing the law. So right now, if you buy ECG, whether via their app, you realize that you don't see the taxes on them. Currently, it is only the commercial purchase of power. They pay the VAT on them. So when you have a postpaid and you receive your bill, you see that there are taxes on them. So it's a matter of implementation that we are seeing now. I agree with you, yes, this looks more regressive because there was a reason why we introduced the exemption. And you realize that over the years, the cost of power, even before the VAT, has increased so high, such that today, the lifeline is no more a lifeline. So we can say that it's been in the law and the implementation was not forthcoming. That's why the ministry has issued this, directive that they should immediately start implementing something that has been in the law over the years.
So, Francis, just a question from Bernard. I was thinking that electricity for domestic use is a final product. VAT, I thought, is more for intermediate goods. So from an economic perspective, I thought there were some challenges with the logic of a VAT on tariffs. on electricity tariffs. I don't know if you can just elaborate a bit on that. I know that the law has been set in motion, and therefore whatever Parliament says is law. But is there not a sense in which you should not be imposing a VAT on electricity?
Not exactly, Bernard. And under VAT and globally, VAT applies to almost every product unless it is listed on an exempt list. Normally, the law will have a schedule that they call exemption. If it is not on it, then it means that it's subject to VAT. VAT under the law is classified as goods. So from onset or from economic point of view, it is a consumption. And the person who is supposed to pay is a consumer. So the same way businesses are consuming electricity for production, the same way we those in the house are also using the electricity. So we are supposed to pay. The only relief was that if you were consuming some minimum amount, in other words, the minimum threshold has been set for the poor, those who traditionally would just use electricity for light and maybe fan and maybe ironing. They don't consume much. So the rationale was that anyone consuming above that limit, you are presumed to be, a higher economic contributor in the country, and therefore you should pay VAT on that. And that has been the position over the period. VAT is usually charged on electricity consumption.
Yeah, but in terms of for domestic use versus commercial use, right? When somebody, Valco uses electricity for productive purposes, I use electricity to watch television. Should there not be a differentiation in the policy? That's number one. Number two, in countries like the UK, VAT on goods and services is 20%, VAT on electricity is 5%. Why are we applying a 15 plus VAT on the same? Because if you look at our own, if you look at the levies, it's almost 19%, okay? So that in advanced countries, in Netherlands, I think, they also differentiate, or is it Denmark? There's a differentiation between VAT on a regular product and VAT on power. But it seems as if by our law, we are applying the same rate. Is that not a problem?
But I'm aligned with you 100% on it. And I agree that VAT should have attracted a separate, tax rate because it's so essential such that we can't live with it without it. Look at even the hospitals. So the levies also have even compounded the whole problem. If you have our 6% levies and they all behave like the VAT, it becomes more of a cascading effect. So the argument that we should have a separate rate for VAT, perfectly and very sound, we could make it 5%. What we do currently for the producers is that they are entitled to a deduction of the VAT they pay. They claim it as an input VAT. So you can say that, yes, they have some relief there. But we consumers, based on the principle of VAT, which says that it is the consumer who pays, we are those who bear it. And therefore, we don't even have any input, from it. But considering the levies, which is 6%, and at the end of the day, the levies are supposed to be added before we calculate the VAT, then in effect, we are paying almost close to 22% of the cost that we have. But I think you are right. We should maybe have a national debate and say, look, VAT is electricity is such an essential commodity like that. We can't treat it like any other commodity. Let's have a flat rate so that at least it can bring the cost down.
Right.
Especially looking at the fact that we now have an automatic adjustment. Now the lifeline is no more saving lives.
Interesting. Now, Francis, my question then is, won't the implementation of the 15% VAT on electricity lead to evasion and illegal connections, thereby negating government's projected gains? Will it?
Perfect. Anytime tax becomes so expensive because of the number of, the taxes or the rate, people find ways out. And so we have something we call tax saturation. People become fed up and they will use all means to, get the same product because electricity is such an essential commodity in the house. They will use all means to get it because it becomes more expensive. The problem that the GRA and the ECG have been having is that the GRA wants them to build it into the price so that if you pay 100 cedis, it's still the same kilowatt you are using. But that doesn't work. So with this call, what is going to happen is that VRA is likely to, or ECG is likely to add the tax, the 22% onto the existing tariff that we have. And that is likely to escalate the price of electricity in this country, and especially if we are considering this automatic adjustment, that would be too much for the ordinary Ghanaian.
So let me just get you straight. You're saying that based on my previous question, this is Bernard, by the way, you think that even if it will be imposed on non-residential consumers, the tax rate should be made the standard flat rate.
Perfect.
So that this way they've calculated it, which has made it almost 20%, should be reviewed. That should be once. That's if they insist on doing it. But generally for consumers, I think they should scrap it completely. But you agree that they can amend it. So that means Parliament has to take a second look at the way they redefine the VAT law, right?
Perfect. Because Bernard, we currently have a flat rate VAT for some categories of businesses. So we could classify electricity as essential commodity and say, look, instead of the levies 6%, the VAT rate of 15%, let's come to a consensus and say, look, we can do 10% or whichever rate we want. So at least we can still accommodate the automatic adjustment. Otherwise, it's going to make the price of power so high in this country. And like VAT, being regressive, the ordinary person is the one going to suffer. And like Caleb said, people will find means of avoiding it if they can.
So, final point, should the government scrap it? Should they suspend it? Should they amend it? I'm asking this from the point of view of the fact that, these laws, Parliament has already approved it, right? So, in the circumstance, what do you think can be done?
Bernard, I think I'll go with your first proposal and say that, look, let's have a flat rate or a reviewed rate, especially for electricity. After all, we know we only have one supplier who does it, so it becomes easier. Now, in terms of scrapping or making it completely exempt, I do not agree because VAT on electricity is not only in Ghana, it's a global thing. And if you look at our tax system, indirect tax constitutes the largest. Over 60% of our tax revenue comes from indirect tax. So taking it off completely would hurt government revenue. What we can do in order to, cushion Ghanaians a little bit.
So government can hurt our revenue, but can't hurt its own revenue. What are you saying? What are you talking about? That is where government revenue. Government revenue plenty that if collected are done with it. That we should suffer for government. Even the countries I'm mentioning are all advanced countries. Is there any African country that takes VAT on electricity?
Oh yes, Bernard, there are a number of them. What I'm saying is that we cannot say electricity should be completely exempted. That argument is far-fetched. Not even in this our current financial circumstances. And I agree with you that.
No. I disagree with you. Francis, no. This one there. With COVID levy, with e-levy, if you count the number of taxes, Francis, you're saying, analyze this on the basis of all the taxes government has imposed from the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. Even there were 4 new taxes imposed. There was a VAT amendment. There was a tax for before profit tax.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the tax.
Yeah.
Excise something tax.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at the effects of debt exchange on people's disposable incomes. You're looking at the exchange rate increases, right? The currency falling. You're looking at inflation, interest rates. When you put all of that together, Ghanaians are suffering already. So it's true that in other countries they apply VAT on electricity, but if as they say, all things considered, at a time when there's even unreliable supply of power, maybe from a technical point of view, you can say it is technically possible to do. But I'm telling you that it is completely unconscionable. I cannot agree with you.
Bernard, why don't you argue rather for COVID levy to go? Why don't you argue for e-levy to go? Because these things are new taxes which, from my view, it can be dealt away with. But VAT is more like a general thing which we can argue and say let it go. But in this circumstance where we find ourselves, especially when taxes like COVID levy are being introduced, it will be very, very difficult for government to say, yes, we want it go. I would rather argue and say, look, take off COVID levy and then reduce the VAT on electricity to, let's say, 5%. That sounds more reasonable than maintaining COVID levy and then putting VAT at its current rate. And especially...
but Francis, what about the argument? You see, COVID levy is on normal, vatable goods and services.
Yes.
Some of which have elastic demand, some of which have inelastic demand, some of which are luxuries, some of which are necessities. My argument is that power is a necessity. And from the basic economics I know, if you apply more tax on a necessity, it is regressive. So if you have COVID levy and it is on earphones, I can decide not to buy earphones because I can decide I won't use earphones to listen to my phone. But even if I'm in Kukrentumi or wherever, I still need power. So you don't need to just analyze from a government perspective that government revenue is good. The regressive nature of the tax means that people will be made poorer. Number two, the effect on industry, because power is a raw material for industry. So AGI is already complaining. When they wanted the import restrictions, they didn't win. AGI. So if you're a manufacturer of cables in Ghana, you have all these challenges you're facing with land and all these things and power that is even unreliable. And you're asking me to pay 15% VAT on the power I use. And you're telling me that that's not going to destroy industrialization and that because government wants revenue, they should do it? No, I disagree with you.
Bernard, let me talk about the household one. The relief there is to provide for the lifeline. Possibly what we can do is to increase the level of lifeline from maybe like 30 kilowatts to, let's say, 60 or 70 so that it can provide more relief. But don't forget that there's a standard across the globe that sometimes we have to look at. There's a template. So we can't be too different from what other countries are doing. Yes, you are right. Industries need to, have some relief to be able to produce. But you can't also look at only one side. You have to look at the other side of the equation, which is government revenue. So the argument must be two.
Francis, thank you for spending time with us, for sharing your thoughts with us as well. That was Francis Tomorrow Boy having an interesting economic exchange on taxation.
Francis,
Bernard in the studio. Bernard, Francis says no, government too must raise some revenue.
If I am
agrees with us to some extent.
If I am a manufacturer in Ghana,
yeah,
I really think very deeply about whether I want to continue. I'm telling you the truth. I mean, AG has never had any. Almost everything and I'm not even sure they've said anything about this. Yeah. They're probably tired.
Yeah. Why should they be tired?
I don't know. I think that this is the worst. I think if this is made to stand, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked. Actually, I won't be that shocked.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Everything has happened. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but I can't believe that you can make a revenue argument to the detriment of everything else. Do you understand? The economy is much more than government revenue. The government itself is very inefficient in the way it allocates revenue. So let's not make it look like once government raises revenue, everything's okay. Yeah. Everything's not okay because the government itself is a very poor manager of its resources. And money in private sector hands. Look at the number of houses people are building in town. People can use their money better. An economy is not rich because government is rich. Let's not make it seem as if every money that we need is government money. It's not government that builds certain things in our country. Go to East Legon, the house, how many of them is government building? So there can be money and economy. The government must use money to do the things that we all cannot do. Build roads and bridges, provide water. But you are now taxing, and this is the thing. You see, indirect taxation, they make the argument that Ghana taxation levels are low. You see, proportionately, Ghana's indirect taxes are very high because the work you do to charge direct tax, you don't want to do it. You don't want to tax property tax. You don't want to you are being put into national ID system. Do it in a way that can let you trace people so you can tax them directly too. But indirect taxes affects the poor inordinately because they have lower disposable income. So it's regressive. Our inequality is growing. So you can't, he is a tax analyst, so he's making an argument from a tax legal perspective. And I'm saying that from a holistic economics argument, there's no sense in this tax. And I'm prepared to, he cannot tell me that because government is revenue, government should collect this tax. No way. No way. No way.
Well,
stop it.
I'm with,
what is he talking about?
I'm with you on this, and I think we've done a lot about how some of the things that need to be done. You've mentioned the property taxes. Like, there's been a start of something, but not to the extent that we thought they would have. Because when you spoke, I remember that interview with Mr. Honorable Osafo at the time. He spoke about a rezoning process, a recategorization of certain places. There has been a clear unwillingness to do some of these things. There has been a clear unwillingness. And I have sat here and said, off the cuff, that we know why.
Yeah.
We know why.
Yeah.
They don't want to touch properties. we know why they don't want to touch properties the way they should touch properties. Because for most people who live in advanced countries, I had a visitor the other time from Germany, and we drove past through a part of town. And the person was like, assumed that persons who lived in your part of town, actually, we drove through your part of town.
Okay.
And my friend was like, hey, then the people who live here, they pay taxes. Because in his head, where he comes from, there is no way you can live in that part of town, in those kind of houses.
Taxes,
No, not just pay some kind of taxes. Maintaining a house like that should cost you.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is that some of those who talk about the property rates own properties in the places you are talking about.
Which is why we have asked why the difficulty.
Unwillingness.
We've spoken about exemptions regime. There has been, again, an attempt to try and work around that. We've had the exemptions law passed and whatnot. But who gets what kind of exemptions?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a significant political coloration and alignment to it. Okay, all these things matter. So in the end, you end up doing this. Look, when you're having the conversation about the king and all, my good friend, and him I can mention his name, Michael Shontete, went to buy Hausa cocoa the other time. This was on, when did Michael go and buy the cocoa? I was with Gaddafi 2 days ago. Cocoa 5 cedis.
Yeah. It's half
cocoa 5 cedis and in Cartier.
I'm telling you. Even Buffalo right now is 3 cedis.
Cocoa 5 cedis and in Cartier. When they brought it, like when he said they should buy him the cocoa 5 cedis, I was thinking it was something we could share. I was like, Michael and I will share the cocoa and Cartier. So the 5 cedis was quarter.
I'm telling you.
With the Cartier.
Food inflation is very high. That's why when people keep saying inflation is coming down, I keep saying that let's explain inflation. Because when you say inflation is coming down, inflation is not there. Inflation coming down doesn't mean prices are coming down. And let me explain it again. Inflation is the rate at which prices are rising compared to either a previous month or a previous year. And I'm saying that if you take November, December 2023, inflation is coming down because compared to November 2022, remember I came back on in November.
The rate at which prices
that was a crazy period. So prices are actually going up. So inflation coming down doesn't mean prices are coming down. And people, please let's understand this. Prices are going up 20% compared to the period. That doesn't mean prices are not going up. They are going up a lot. Continue.
And I get, again, upset by the lack of voices that you spoke about. One thing I've been very disappointed about, and I even took the vice president on when we were told that he's against certain policies, but we never hear about how he's against those policies. Okay.
Somebody said to me that if there's a policy the government passes and the vice president doesn't speak about it, it means he doesn't support it.
What is that?
That's what the person told me. Yeah, the person said if the person doesn't talk. By the way, lifeline usage of electricity is 47 cedis at 30 kilowatts. So that actually means that if you pay anything above 58 cedis a month, you are out of the lifeline.
Yes.
But you don't use more than 58 cedis.
58 cedis
a month. So if you spend more than 58 cedis a month, you pay the tax.
Yes,
so
I'm paying.
Only those who so 0 to 57 cedis are those who will be outside
for a month. 0 to 57.
Yes. So everybody else is inside. Is it on the line?
Bernard, Kofi Capito is with the Consumer Protection Agency. Godfred, I'll come to you shortly.
Kofi.
Yeah.
Does he agree with
He's
this?
the Chief Executive Officer.
Kofi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and welcome to the Citi Breakfast Show.
Happy New Year to you guys. Bernard, I am glad you are on the side of the consumer this morning.
I've always been.
I totally agree with you 100%. This is a ridiculous stealing of the people's money. Bernard, it's called what? VAT, Valued Added Tax. If a manufacturer, if a company who uses electricity to make profit is asked to pay tax on it because government needs the revenue, and for it. Because guess what? Even as we speak, consumers are buying things like milk, like other things from various stores. You go to the restaurant, you pay taxes, you pay VAT on it. So why does it come for this government, to come and tell the consumer that because you are using the electricity for yourself, Bernard, I'm using it for myself, I'm not using it to make ice kinky, to go and sell. I'm not using it to make pure water, to go and sell. But to consume, I should pay. What value is the consumer or the resident electricity user adding to the power that he's getting. It's a raw material. And the raw material, I'm not adding any value to it. The guy from the tax expert was making this assertion that government needs revenue. Is that the only way government can tax and make revenue? You see, when government talks, and we've been saying this for the longest time, what about looking at government expenditure? Bernard, it's only in Africa that government expenditure, sometimes when you look at it, it doesn't make any sense. You have government people flying business and first class, where the advanced countries that have made money, that we go and borrow, those people fly economy. And we are not even asking. You are talking about property rates. The reason why places like, let's say, airport residential, cantonment, East Legon, and all those places should pay more taxes because the owners of the buildings has more to protect. So once you pay more taxes, you have a better refuse collection, you have better security. All those things comes to play for paying that higher taxes. That's why they say location, location, location. Okay, and like you said, the same people who own this property are the ones that we are asking them to go and make a law so that we can tax their own property. Bernard, the consumer is tired. This year alone, from the first of the year, there's been more than 20 taxes introduced. Cars, now if you register a vehicle, you are forced to pay 100 cedis for what? 100 cedis for what? Insurance has gone up, and you're asserting that people talk about inflation is coming down. Then I agree with you 100%. The fact that inflation is coming down doesn't mean that cost of watch has come down, cost of kinky has come down. In other jurisdictions, when you say inflation has come down, when I go to the bank and I go and borrow money, it will reflect in the interest that will be slapped on it. Go to the banks today and tell the banks that you want to borrow, and because inflation is down, they should reduce the lending rate to you. They will tell you they cannot. So what is wrong with the government that a law that was made in 2013, in 2013, when the law was passed, they were afraid that they could not even introduce it. And I can tell you with confidence that the president was not even happy about this thing being introduced. The president of Ghana was not happy. So the question I'm asking, who had audacity to do this? And that person is still opposed. Do they want to kill Ghanaians? What is this government doing to us? We are tired, though. The consumers and the people of Ghana are very, very, very tired.
Right, Kofi, this is Caleb here. Now, my question then is, was there consultation prior to the implementation of this very...
No. You know why? And I'll tell you why. When we went to the IMF, right? The IMF said, oh, you need money. But you passed the law since 2013 that you are going to tax 20% on electricity consumers. Why don't you go and implement that thing and you get revenue? That is why this thing was introduced. And I challenge anybody and I'll prove it to them. What kind of country do we live in? We have a finance minister whose pension is to tax the people. And when are they giving back to the people? COVID levy, with all due respect, why are we still paying COVID levy in Ghana? Why? For what? Bernard, we are doing things to ourselves that it doesn't make any sense. And people are now saying that this government is very, very, very insensitive. And I agree with them. Because a government that came into power saying that they are coming for the people of Ghana, that is not the way they are acting now. They are acting as if they don't care about the people of Ghana.
Very well. Thank you so much, Kofi Kapito. He is the Chief Executive of Consumer Protection Agency.
Kapito agrees with me.
Yes,
that
Capital
this
agrees with
is
us.
a terrible
It's a
decision.
regressive one.
Yeah, so many
Must be
comments.
scrapped.
So many.
Many comments. We have a lot of messages coming through.
Yeah, let me take
Yes.
some of the messages.
Yes,
Ben,
yes,
didn't
yes.
we know that e-levy was in a way a tax on capital instead of taxing profits? Did we care? That is supposed to be a tax on goods and services we consume. We agree. But it cannot be sensible to tax every essential good and services. So any VAT percentage on electricity consumption shouldn't be right. But do they care? At this point, those of us who can will install 15 kVA solar systems and check out from the national grid, because in the long run, solar will be cheaper and more reliable. From Selassie in Tema.
Okay.
Hi, Ben and Caleb. They've imposed tax on electricity effortlessly. They should use the same effortlessness to cut down the size of government and all the allowances they take. I agree with Ben. Industry and consumers should all reject this tax. It's as if there is no parliament. Very soon we'll be taxed for being Ghanaian. Revenue is being lost every day at the port. Revenue is lost at free zones. And all those companies who have been giving tax holidays from now till heaven comes. Why? Nivan is asking. Bernard, they can charge VAT on electricity, but taking note of all other taxes already in existence. In Italy, in the case of domestic users, the VAT rate applied is 10%, while for users for non-domestic users, industrial or other, the rate of 22% is applied. Good morning, Ben and Co. I agree with you. In fact, this tax expert's argument does not hold. How can you justify a tax because the others are doing it? Tell you guys, call people who think about the masses when it comes to things like this. Nigeria, a few days ago, had cut its expenditure on travels for the presidency and even the first lady. What has happened to us in Ghana? The budget is just ballooning. What cuts have we seen? None, my brother. We, the youth, will dash the country to you. When we leave, you will see who will pay the taxes for you. I just looked at my last electricity bill in the UK this January, and I see a VAT of 5%. It seems to be a normal thing, but as to whether Ghana has the moral to charge, this is another question. I can share a copy of the bill if you require. This is Sicho. Hey, Sicho, Happy New Year.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Yes,
I spoke to
I
on the
think,
onboarders.
Yeah, but we do agree that I did point out that the UK does charge, but it's 5%. Here, our effective VAT is almost 20%.
Yeah.
You know.
This one says, Bernard, I can't agree with you more. The reliance on indirect taxes just doesn't make sense. So, Hema from Tema. Good morning. Citi, I'm John from Medina Estates. I see a VAT rate of 12.5% on my ECG receipts, meaning it is VAT inclusive. Please call ECG to explain this additional 15%. Very soon, GRA will come to our homes to collect taxes for the air we breathe. Hey, what is all this? Collecting tax on everything, literally everything. I hear the lifeline has now been reduced to 30 Ghana cedis. So it's no more 57 Ghana cedis. So I have to verify that, Henry. My brother, the property rates will affect the politicians more. Hence, they are not interested. The finance ministry is not serving its intended purpose and taking money from the poor to waste on politicians and their fantasies called policy. Cut the size of government and eradicate corruption. Okay. I wonder why we call it governance when this is actually misgovernance. This is David from Ofanko. Price of LPG has gone up. Charcoal business has gone up and booming. Something that went down with the advent of domestic LPG usage. 15% VAT on power. Illegal connection will go up. ECG will lose revenue. Government not realizing its intended revenue.
That's the point.
Can you imagine we buy KK for 5 Ghana cedis in Enum Apapem?
Enum Apapem.
Which is the
5
same,
Ghana cedi.
Which is the same weight as it is in the capital. Meanwhile, rent in this farming community and market center is just 20% of what the rate is in Accra. The whole nation needs citizenship education. Let the government use the media and adverts. They should crack the whip where necessary, or else let's bring in the Chinese to produce KK for us, since that is how we seem to want it now. Duke is very upset. I just don't get this whole VAT and lifeline consumer issue. Most meters in households are shared by different rooms. People don't have their separate meters. An individual may have consumption not above the lifeline, but because it's a shared meter, the collective consumption on that meter will go above the lifeline. So what happens in such a situation? Again, people are saying KK is now 5 CDs. Well, I bought 3 CDs.
Yeah, I was saying that
yesterday.
If you want to be satisfied,
I hadn't
bought
bought
3 CDs.
KK directly
One
myself
ball.
in a long time.
Yes.
So I didn't know it was 5 CDs.
Yeah, it started, the one where I went to, Dance My Man Go Down.
Okay.
3 CDs, 4 CDs, 5 CDs.
This was Adabaka. It was 4 and 5, 3 cranial.
I had
Serious?
3, 4, 5. But it was the cocoa that shocked me.
But the
Good
2
morning.
there is no there to cry.
Good morning, better than team. Well, in my area, I spent checks in Matthew between Assemblies of God Church and Palace Mall. There's a KK job which sells for 3 Ghana cedis and 4 Ghana cedis, and it's very nice. This money man from Spintex, Nanette. Ben and King K price is 5 Ghana cedis.
As in Tema.
As for Tema,
K, I cannot take this your Hitler reference, so bye-bye. Bernard, while at it seems Ghana Water Company Limited too is doing their thing. I don't know if it's linked to ECG, but since this doom saw resumed, my tap has not worked.
Well, we got a story yesterday about students in the eastern region having to queue for water because they're having water challenges. I wonder if the Ghana Water has a response to this.
I think there has been an intervention so far, and their taps are running now.
I thought they brought them tankers.
Yeah, so there was a supply. I saw some intervention on the television a bit later on that particular.
Now, the other last point I want to make is that, when I say that this will be counterproductive, I'm very serious because already manufacturing and industry have contracted for 4 consecutive quarters. If you read the statistical
4 consecutive quarters.
Manufacturing is contracting. It's contracting. And manufacturing employs a lot of people. It's contracting. So we are in a big hole. And I don't think this is the solution to that.
Bernard, what will it take for the government to listen? Because it's obvious they are going to inflict hardship on the people.
Maybe the one who's running for president in the NPP should tell them to stop because it will affect his electoral chances. Since politicians, that's what they think about voting. So maybe Baumia should come out and say, I disagree with this tax, it's bad. He should ruffle a few feathers.
So he said he's his own man too.
Yeah, maybe that's what he should. Maybe he should come out and say, look, I kept quiet when he did 11 because I was vice president. I'm still vice president, but now I'm the flag bearer of the NPP. And I'm saying to Mr. Finance Minister that you cannot do this. And let them cause an argument. You get it? Because sometimes we want peace, quiet, not too happy. You have to say, no, we don't agree. Because if he doesn't say anything, it means he agrees. And we'll remember. Remember. We'll remember. We'll remember all the promises. We'll remember everything they said about hardship. We'll remember everything they said about the economy. We'll remember everything they said and yet went around the e-levy. We'll remember this one too. The COVID expenditure. We'll remember the audit. We'll remember all those things. So I think that maybe they should listen to, maybe the vice president should come out and say that this is bad. He's an economist. Yeah. He should come and tell me that he agrees with this. What calculation did they do? Why the predominant focus on indirect taxes? If it's focused on digitization, we're supposed to help improve identity, which can then make it easier to tax directly.
More people.
What intervention has led to increasing direct taxes and reducing this regressive focus on? We want to hear from him. He has to come out and tell us.
So, Bernard, this is a nuisance tax for you.
It is not even a nuisance. It is a regressive nuisance, absolutely unjustifiable at this time.
Godfrey, before we went for the break, you were making a point, but then we spoke to Kofi Capital. So
that's okay. No, don't worry. It's fine. I think Bernard has made most of the points. I just feel the government needs to get on track with its policies. We talk constantly of policy dissonance, and Bernard alluded to that. What does Katie Hammond think of this?
Yes.
You understand? Because he's trying to push industrialization, which has been struggling. Yeah. They've been saying whatever it is they want to say about it. But what does he say about it? I want to hear from AGI because you're trying to put... And we've had several examples of this. We've said this on this show several times. Several of these policies come and it looks like it ends up affecting one side of something they are doing.
Yeah.
You understand? It makes it counterproductive. So basically, you just end up wasting everybody's time. We need to get on the same page and fix these things.
We need to get on the same page and fix these things. Very, very important there. Godfrey Akotobuafo, Bernard Koku Avle in the studio, and we are pushing. We're saying that the implementation of this 15% tax on electricity tariffs is regressive. The poor will get poorer. The people will suffer. So government must listen.